Well, I guess thanks for all coming down. I'm John Blatchford. I'm the president of J.K. Adams down in Dorset, Vermont, and I'm also the president of the Vermont Woodworkers Council. And so I was approached by Christine to see if I could pull together a group and talk about design. And we kind of wrestled with what that might look like, whether it's about trends or about what's being produced out there. I figured a lot of people knew what was being produced out there, but what I try to do in this group is groups that are see the market from different aspects and what customers, end customers, what wholesale customers and people like that are looking for out in the market, and then hopefully we can tie it back into what's going on within our wood forest. So what's within our forest in terms of wood types, things like that, and really sort of see it. I also hope that it can be sort of an interactive thing. So if you have a question, want to follow up on something someone said, stop. It's a pretty small group, so obviously we can do that really easily. So thought I would introduce people, allow people to introduce themselves. Peggy, you want to start?
Sure. Peggy, Farabaugh. I'm with Vermont Wood Studios. We're out of Vernon, Vermont. We retail Vermont-made furniture online and some Vermont-made home decor. We have Simon Pearce and Hubbard & Forge. Occasionally, we'll get some J.K. Adams pieces. So most of our sales are online. We kind of hit the mid-market. And we started actually with custom furniture, but we couldn't figure out how to sell that online. So we're kind of mid-market. Shaker furniture is kind of our bread and butter, but we offer modern, mid-century modern craftsmen. So yeah, that's what we're up to.
Super. Dave?
I'm Dave Hurwitz. I'm a furniture maker, designer maker. I'm based in Randolph, Vermont. Been self-employed for, it's going on 26 years now. I've been building furniture professionally for 32 years. But I'm also here wearing several different hats. So I'm here as a furniture maker. I'm also a member of the Guild of Vermont Furniture Makers, and then I'm a representative from the Guild on the board of the Vermont Woodworkers Council. So in that capacity, I've kind of been able to kind of get a better sense of the broader industry in Vermont, and then I also teach occasion at the Vermont Woodworking School to some working with students as well.
Great. James.
And I'm James Murray. I head up design at Simon Pearce, which is based in Windsor, Vermont, and we do all the product development there. It's not just glass and ceramics, but we also design and develop items. We do with a lot of other resources, even working with Andrew Pearce, Simon's son. We work on some of the design with him that we sell ourselves. I have the buying group and merchandising, store development, so we have a lot of sort of hats that we wear to create the look and feel of Simon Pearce. And I also teach at Pratt. I do a design and product development class there, so on the academic side, I'm working on the same sort of topic that I do at Simon Pearce.
That's great. James, you might say, well, why'd you bring a glass, someone who works in glass? And I think one of the reasons was he has a passion for wood, has designed wood products, but also I think a lot of the things that we see around in the wood products industry probably are things that translate over. I figured having that perspective would be an interesting one. At J.K. Adams, just give you the not for our company, we produce houseware and gift products. So our big customers are people like Crate and Barrel, Williams-Sonoma, and then a lot of independent retailers around the country as well. So that's what we've been doing around for 75 years, and we work in pretty much strictly with North American hardwood, a little bit of slate coming out of Pulteney and Granville area and that sort of thing for some products as well. So anyhow, great. So I thought I'd start with just sort of a broader thing about what are you seeing out in the market, what kind of trends you're seeing, and how do you monitor, I guess, and how do you respond to them over time, and how does it affect the design work you're doing and ultimately the products you're producing and/or you're choosing to sell in your store? So I don't know who wants to take that first, but
I'll take it.
good.
So as far as trends go with Vermont-made furniture, it's not that trendy, really. I think Vermont is very famous for our, natural hardwood, handcrafted, I'll say simple, elegant furniture, often called shaker or mission. And that isn't trendy, so that's like maybe the bottom of the pyramid is that Vermont brand, really, that we've established over 200 years. And when you're talking about interior design, it's kind of brought in just like the floors or the walls. I mean, it's a basic design element, and it's simple, so it can be dressed up to go with any design trend that comes into the house, that the interior designer brings into the house. But we have seen an increase in like mid-century modern furniture. So we got Kate back there in the back from Matthew Burak's Classic Designs, tablelegs.com. And so they're making a lot of mid-century modern table legs. And we're seeing a lot of interest in that. I mean, over the last 10 years, would you say that's really become very, very popular? Yeah, so those of us who lived back in the 60s and 70s will remember that sort of Jetsons kind of looking furniture.
Where are you monitoring? Are you getting the feedback from customers, and that's what's telling you where to go, or is it magazines, trade shows, things like that?
Both, yeah. Customers are looking for it, but we better have the photos of it first.
Yeah.
So Copeland Furniture actually is the leader in finished furniture in Vermont of that mid-century modern design in terms of larger size companies. So we sell a lot of their mid-century modern furniture. The other thing I'm seeing an uptick in, and you guys actually do this too, it's like mixed media furniture. So you've got a wood tabletop and you've got a metal table leg. And that's kind of like a modern industrial theme that you would see in a loft apartment in New York or something like that. So those are the two that I'm seeing kind of trending upwards right now.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, mid-century for sure is hot. But I think within that, that's sort of a broad brush. It's a label that gets applied to a lot of things. And within that category, there's also Danish Modern that falls into that, which is more skin. It was, those were happening simultaneously within the mid-century movement. When that was going on, Danish Modern was happening at that time, and that was Scandinavian design, very clean lined. A lot of it was teak at that time, but some of those styles are also coming back right now within that. And then also, one thing that was also going on simultaneously during that movement, like mid-century was originally late 1950s, early 1960s, kind of within that range. But there was also George Nakashima was a furniture maker who was producing at that time from the 1940s through the early 80s. His daughter has continued the business, and they were using a lot of live edge slab type stuff, but within a kind of Scandinavian sort of Japanese type of design sense at that time. And at that time, that was really their own thing. And there's been a huge resurgence of his work and popularity, and so now there's this huge craze for anything live edge. It's kind of been pretty hot the last number of years, and so that's a huge thing that's going on right now. But what's going on now that I see is there's all these different permutations and different ways that people are interpreting live edge. So a lot of like the natural slab kind of thing paired with the very industrial with a lot of metal bases, metal frames, sometimes bringing in other materials. There's kind of been a big kind of explosion of people craving all these different kinds of surfaces and textures and
River table.
yes, there's a ton of that.
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, that's like, for anybody who doesn't know, it's like taking 2 slabs and then casting like massive amounts of epoxy in between. That's a big trend thing. But also color and texture is very popular right now. I see with a lot of interior designers right now. That's a growing trend. And so, and that was part of mid-century, the American side of mid-century back in the day. There was a lot of color and weird materials and textures and things that were going on at that time. So there has been that resurgence. I do a lot of painted stuff in my work, a lot of carving and painting, and I work with interior designers, and I get requests for different colors that they want, and they're getting really bold lately. You know, they're requesting some really interesting kind of funky colors.
Are the designers, how you're sort of tracking, figuring out where it's going, or is it, hey, you also take the time to travel to New York, or, you know, you're reading magazines? How are you getting your information to keep on top of it?
Yeah, it's part of it's the requests that I'm getting, but it's also, looking at trade publications, kind of seeing what's out there online, stuff that's out there. But a lot of it is too seeing what the requests are. And then another big trend that has been going for a number of, maybe 5-6 years now, has been walnut, which doesn't really help us in Vermont when we're trying to sell Vermont wood, but that's one thing that furniture makers are up against a lot of times, is we get people from the States saying, why can't you make stuff out of beech, or, these different underutilized woods? But really what drives our thing is, what are people requesting, and what are those trends, and those are constantly changing. And walnut's been hot for a lot of years, and I kind of polled my members of the Vermont furniture makers, and everybody said like walnut. They're all doing walnut. And what we're seeing now is like the price of walnut has gone like through the roof right now. It's gotten really expensive to find a good quality walnut because demand's so high. So now some customers are opting for cherry or other woods instead. So there's some of that shift going on as well.
James?
Yeah, actually, speaking of walnut, just for Simon Pearce, which is a glass company, but for a buying company and doing what we do with retail, walnut is the #1 wood that we sell, and there's kind of no way to kind of veer the customer off of that right now. But we hope to be able to use ash and some of the other woods to kind of convince them over time of using some of these other woods. 2 weeks ago, though, just for where we get inspiration, I was in Milan for the design show there, and also go to a lot of the European trade shows like Maison Objet in Frankfurt. And I've seen wood really coming on strong as a medium. So there's just a lot more presence of wood at the trade shows, particularly solid woods, a lot of the walnuts. But in Europe, they like white oak, they like ash, and Douglas fir, and other types of softwood. A lot of live edge. So live edge is just big across the world. And there's some customization and flexibility with it, because people are into selecting what the wood top would be for furniture, and then choosing different leg designs, which could be welded and sometimes wood. But like ICFF and the Architectural Digest show in New York also has just a lot of wood and live edge wood being shown. But I would say at this last Milan design show, there's a lot of Scandinavian stuff coming on strong, and like Finn Ewell, Hans Begner, all the famous like furniture designs from the 50s and 60s are all like super big sort of trade show presentations at the Milan show. It's all solid wood construction, beautiful joinery, and I think just how that stuff's come on much stronger in the past couple of years, I think it's influencing a lot of what's happening. But we use a lot of different sort of trend resources. It's the trade shows. We actually go down to New York for some trend presentations for the home furnishings industry, which are like every 6 months they're doing some kind of presentation about the next season. So you get a sense of where consumer tastes and preferences are going, how things are kind of migrating towards certain finishes and looks, and where the consumer's values are at. And actually shaker is important just as a theme of simplicity. There's almost a shaker revival happening that is about paring things down, clearing out your house, and really having things that are purposeful. And I think Vermont could maybe seize on that a little more and broadcast it.
Not think of it as
Like old shaker.
old.
It's new shaker.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. That's interesting. Do you think the natural component, like I'm hearing natural, I'm hearing texture, I'm hearing things that we all love to hear as wood people, is that driven off the interest in the environment and all those type things? And do you think that's what's driving that, or is it just, hey, it used to be I wanted clean, I liked laminate, I like all these things, but now I'm done with that, I'm on to this. What's the cause?
I think consumers are into traceability.
Okay.
Becoming more aware that you should pay attention to where your products come from, and not have things that have formaldehyde and other outgassing, sort of processes baked into them. So I think with these shifts and having more thought to where things come from and being careful about what you bring into your home, it really makes a case for things that are like well-built, possibly hand-built, made out of solid materials in a very deliberate way that has more integrity. I think that's where Vermont can really kind of rise up in that, because it's been doing it all along.
I've wondered the same thing. Is if you look at Joanna Gaines and the popularity of that whole farmhouse aesthetic, and it's carrying over. Someone was sending me, was down in Waco, Texas, had been to Magnolia, and then gone to another store. These beautiful, they were obviously pine. I could tell. They look like French farmhouse cutting boards, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, how in the world are they doing it? They look like they've been made in the States, so I ordered one up, and it came in this big box, and came in, and all of a sudden, I opened the box, and whew, it had, they had applied, some sort of poly or something or other to it. So I, email them, hey, just wondering, I got this smell, and oh yeah, it's safe for food contact. I'm sitting there like, yeah, no, I don't think so. And sometimes I think in Vermont, I think that true natural, whether it's where the material came from, finishes that we use, the Vermont natural coatings, things like that. I think there is an opportunity to really promote that maybe as an angle. I think. I don't know. What do you all think?
I agree.
Possible?
I mean, Vermont already has that brand of natural materials and integrity and handcrafted. We already have that brand. But Vermont, I mean, we've never really leveraged it. I mean, it's got to be, we have to make an investment in getting that marketing message out. So, private companies can do what we can do, but it's not enough. It's not enough. You look at, you mentioned the Amish, they've had a lot of help from the state of Pennsylvania. In crafting their marketing messages.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's a great opportunity, but it's going to take some effort.
Yeah. When you look at wood products, go across so many different categories. We can go, cabinetry. We can have furniture. We can have home decor products and so forth. Is there any one that leads more than the other? Do you think? I mean, is furniture drive, or is it home decor then drives furniture and the accessories? Any thought on that?
That's a great question.
I'm asking because I want to. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think one thing that I've noticed is that in the past few years, there's been this trend of, and I think some of this actually started in Vermont. I mean, there was a Sawyer in Vermont. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was sawing all like butternut, and it was like wormy butternut and salvage butternut.
Parker.
Yeah. And so he did that, and at the time, I think he got a lot of flack from other loggers and stores, like, why are you sawing that stuff? But he was smart, and he developed a market for this, and he was taking it down to designers in New York, and he was doing like showroom store interiors, and he created a market for this stuff, and it was like this salvage, wormy, kind of stuff. But shortly after that, that became a pretty massive trend that's kind of also taken off, and then that led into salvage barnwood and barn boards, and that's totally hot right now. I'm looking at this wall right now, and it has the saw marks on it, and that's actually kind of subtle. But that's so hot right now. All this salvage wood, that's actually now translated into, now they're doing gray is a popular color, like anything that's stained gray, and it's sort of stained in a color to kind of look like weathered gray wood. There's now flooring manufacturers that are making gray stained wood. There's a ton of that going on right now. That's spilled over into cabinetry, kitchen cabinets, cabinet design. So now the interior designers are really all over that stuff right now. And I think
that
some
gray
of
is
that,
interesting, because we saw it in kitchens. And so, J.K. Adams, we need to be more forward-thinking, is one of the things I always argue. But we saw it come popping up in kitchens, and that's what drove us to develop a line of, we used ash with a gray, sort of a gray finish, and it's been our best-selling product.
Right.
So I guess coming back to the question, I was like, well, where does it start? We happen to see it in a kitchen. Our products go in a kitchen. I bet we're on trend.
Right.
We got that one right.
yeah, and then some of that, even that gray weathered, whether it's stain or weathered wood, that's also spilled over into paint colors.
Right.
And then every year there's it's Pantone. They get together, they choose the color of the year, which then translates into like all types of design, whether it's industrial design, everything, nail polish, fashion. You'll see that color everywhere. And so like gray has become a hot color now. And some of that is now spilling over into furniture now too. I've seen it more, I think, the production end of furniture.
James, is it a part of the house, or is it lifestyle or something like that that you're thinking, that you're looking at first to maybe make your guess on what's going to be popular, 24 months out or something like that?
I'm not sure what product category that might start in, that kind of gray trend, but you definitely, you get the feeling and the sense that this is where consumers are going when you're out there. It might start with investment pieces like furniture, or if you were putting flooring down in your house. I think gray in itself has just come on strong in the past couple of years. I mean, Restoration Hardware does a lot with gray, which I think in a more mass, general consumer way, that's made it very palatable for people. It's given people a way to understand how to use gray, and other companies have too. But it's neutral, and it can work with a lot of interiors. So I've seen it in the home accessories, but I've also seen it in furniture and flooring and what you do with your home. So it's hard to say
Which one's first?
Which one's first?
Yeah.
Sometimes pickup items, things that are like lower price points. It could be small occasional furniture pieces or home accessories. Can be a way for customers to adopt a look, to get it into their hands, get it into their homes, and then if they like it, it starts to, migrate into other things. So it also makes me wonder, like, what other types of products, in furniture can be the indicator. It could be more occasional, easier to throw in your car and take home type products.
Yeah. I wonder what you all are seeing. So you hear, I heard one of you say, people stripping back and they want the meaningful pieces in their house.
Shaker.
Right, yeah, right, okay. But, and then I hear also things like, we're all wondering, okay, what are the 30-somethings or the 20-somethings, what are they going to want to buy? And I'm hearing they want experiences, they don't want to buy products. That's, wait a minute, I like to sell products, so I'm hoping that isn't true, or what is
are part of the experience.
There you go.
They become part of the fabric of your life, and I think millennials are picky. They want to know also where things come from, and they have a there's an eco consciousness in in that generation.
So that should work well for us here in Vermont.
It should. I mean, sometimes there's a problem with being able to afford the product.
Yeah, right.
So how do you bridge that?
Fewer things,
things.
but things that
Exactly.
last. Like,
Right.
there's a woman who started Buy It Once. And so she's been very, very successful just selling things that have a lifetime guarantee. And she has a nice curated collection. It's very, very popular. So I think millennials, many of them are trying to follow that advice. You know, a few things, but things I'll always have.
Things that have an heirloom quality.
Right.
You're going to make a commitment to it and live with it. I think is becoming more important for people.
Yeah.
Is that where the experience, so, Simon Pearce wants to give people the experience of showing them what goes into glass making. I've always thought that may be an opportunity around the furniture making industry. We kind of keep our doors closed a little too much over on wood products. And if they want to, if you're trying to convince them to spend that much more for a glass than the one they can buy at Target, well then, how do you connect them to it?
So that is actually, it's a great thing to bring up because if you think about it, in America, we've lived with a few decades of a lot of the products we live with being outsourced, to other countries. And that's created a disconnection from how things are made. And I think today now, though, people are coming back around to this. We've kind of gotten tired of the mass consumption of things and not knowing where they come from. And we're revisiting where things come from and knowing the maker of these things. And I think, like a company like Simon Pearce, we're trying to reconnect customers with how the things you live with are made. And we're just, in the glass and ceramic business, but I think it applies to wood and furniture. And Andrew's trying to do that, Andrew Pearce with his wood turning business. So how do we make that more visible and make that, and actually walking the recent trade shows, I saw a lot more companies talking about the how and the why of their business and really like putting it out there and having even demonstrations of how they make things at the trade shows. So that's good to see, this connection to how we make things.
Yeah, I may have overspoke because I guess I'd be interested to get your perspective. The guild members seem to be more open door than, say, the more manufacturing-oriented companies like me or maybe Dave's company or that sort of thing. The guild kind of embraces that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have any trade secrets or anything. I mean,
We don't.
We're pretty open to people visiting. We're a group that collectively we share with each other, our own processes. We give each other advice on things. But I think that's a great point that you made about that, people making that connection, because there's definitely a disconnect. And I think in these past decades, when everything got outsourced, was also the time when school districts were cutting budgets. The first thing to go were their wood programs, wood shops. They got rid of their wood equipment. They brought in the computers. That's been sad to watch. And so kids aren't getting that hands-on shop class anymore. And so, everybody's addicted to their screens and their devices now. And so the concept of like, wow, you actually made that, it's sort of more intriguing to people, and it does become a kind of a sales thing, So yeah, I don't get a lot of visitors to my shop, but when I do, it's always great when I have like families come by, and if they bring kids who are kind of interested, I'll set them up behind my workbench and show them how to use like a spoke shave or something, anything to just sort of get them hooked a little bit.
What the younger students who are coming in at Vermont Woodworking School, because primarily, how average age of the student that you have there?
It's a range. I mean, I'd say mostly they're in their 20s and 30s, but we do get some older folks as well. Some people that are doing career changes. We've had people in their 50s that had a whole career and they're ready to do something.
Right. What's the draw for the 20, 30 something year old? Is it the fact that they want to work with their hands? Is there something that's drawn them? What's drawn them there?
Yeah, it's that, and they want to be furniture makers. They want to enter this world, this furniture making world.
So they must believe that there's a demand for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You alluded to the fact that you've seen an uptick in wood products. I'm curious, do people believe this? Sometimes I get involved in it where I'm like, oh man, this wood products is a dying breed, and then I quickly look around and I don't feel it. I'm just curious, what do people think? Do you think wood is trending up, neutral, flat?
I think there's a lot of competition from chrome. And that's partially because people don't want to do the maintenance of wood items. But what I'm wondering of your panel, how do you cope with the constant creep of what you might call themes in furniture? In 1964, I went to the World's Fair in New York City, and Haywood Wakefield had an entire pavilion of their own. 5 years later, they're gone. Haywood Wakefield specialized in very high-quality reproductions of colonial era furniture, and suddenly nobody was buying that.
Right. That's a great question. I didn't have it here on my list, but I think it's really important. Trends are changing faster, slower, the same as they have the last 15 to 20 years. What do you think?
Style trends are kind of slowly changing. I mean, relatively slowly compared to price point trends. And that may have been what did in Haywood Wakefield, because in the, let's say, 60s, 70s is when the imports really started to take over, right? So all of these great furniture makers, not in Vermont actually, Vermont stayed local, but Massachusetts, North Carolina, some of the Midwestern, that was like a mass exodus to China. And now it's a mass exodus, not so much, but out of China to even cheaper places. So Vietnam and Honduras, these places. So that trend is moving really fast, and it's really hard for us to be competitive because most consumers don't understand the difference between American-made and imported. They don't know that the wood in their imported furniture is illegally harvested, and they don't know it's shipped from Brazil to China to here, and there's formaldehyde and all kinds of other toxic things, and it looks similar, and the price is a fraction. So it's really a matter of education for us, and there's only like a tiny niche of people who can both afford Vermont-made furniture and understand why they should buy it and are shopping for furniture. So it's a small niche to begin with.
Right.
And it
Is the design trend, though, is that changing faster today, which in some ways I think makes it another challenge we all face, right? If you make one style, say you make colonial reproduction furniture, and that's what you do, and the design and the trend is off colonial reproduction furniture, boy, you better pivot or you're struggling. And it strikes me that design trends change faster today, but I don't.
Your example is exactly what happened with Matt Burat at Classic Designs. So he pivoted and went to table legs, and he's very successful.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point, the question that you raised, and I think the companies that are thriving are the ones who are, kind of paying attention to those shifts in the marketplace, and then, maybe they have a line that's been steady that they've done, but then they may add a line or something. They try some new things. They innovate a little bit, and I think that's what Copeland has done. Copeland Furniture, they're very kind of contemporary kind of thing. I mean, it was maybe 10, 12 years ago. They had a contract to produce. It was a Frank Lloyd Wright. It was a barrel chair, and they got the license to produce that. But they didn't run it that long because I think it wasn't really as successful as they had hoped. And so they dropped that, and they kind of got more with what was in demand. But I think at the same time, what I see is sometimes there are smaller producers that maybe they just jump on bandwagons a lot, you know, and I see that going on a lot, you know, where there's those kind of trends, and I think it does happen much more quickly right now because right now with the whole advent of Instagram is what I'm seeing, and I see this with students as well. It's like before our sources for design and inspiration were from all over, either from books, they're from our own avenues that we explored, but now it's so easy, it's right at our fingertips, and everybody's just sort of looking on Instagram of what's popular. And so maybe something cool comes up, but then it gets copied really fast, and all of a sudden, like, everybody's making that thing, you know, so I see that a lot too. And so I think the key is like, yeah, maybe you can keep some awareness of where the overall trends are going, but then how do you be kind of innovative and creative within that? How do you do your own thing that maybe stands out a little from that field?
How do you guys deal with it? I mean, in some ways, your line is timeless. It looks similar to the way it probably did 15, 20, but you got to evolve, right? And how do you deal with that, James?
I mean, it's a form of portfolio management that we do at Simon Pearce. So there's this idea of there's a Boston consulting model of what are your cash cows, your core, what are your rising stars, what are your question marks, which can become rising stars, and what are the dogs, which either you kind of keep in the background, maybe they just have to find their day. And what we try to do is every 6 months we're reevaluating our line. So we're looking at how those classic core products are doing all the time. We decide whether some need a little help. Sometimes you just add a new line extension to a long-standing line, and that invigorates it. And then we also look at where we can bring in some newness, the rising stars, and see what of those rising stars can then become future cash cows. So it's a form of portfolio management. But it has to be active and alive in the company, and you have to be doing it consistently. Sometimes if you just follow the trends and you're kind of moving around like too much, you can actually burn up a lot of resources and find yourself, you know, it's just being copied on Instagram, and you know, we try to build things the old-fashioned way from the ground up, even if it is something entirely new, and hope, you know, it'll have some staying power. And we are constantly evaluating the line. So we don't just let things just keep going indefinitely without checking on them every 6 months.
Yeah. It's funny, I look at some ways, Instagram is like this unbelievable source of imagery and inspiration, and I've seen it I think to the point you're making, it can drive you nuts because everybody's sending me a picture. You know, I get multiple pictures a week. You guys need to be making X. I'm like, yeah, that's like uber modern, and no one thinks of J.K. Adams for uber modern product. It's cool, it's neat, but I can see where you'd start to go all over the place rather than sort of saying, you know, having a more rational approach to it. But I do think, you know, what we found is that, you know, that we're trying, you know, we do have to sort of say, be deliberate in what we are going to work on, what we're not going to work on. Otherwise, it becomes too disjointed. It's hard for us to tell the story of what J.K. Adams is about and what they're doing. And we're far from perfect at it, but it is something we kind of work on all the time.
But that's some of the brand management. That's just pushing whatever those new ideas are through the lens of J.K. Adams.
Yeah,
really deciding is it right to bring into the brand or not. You got to deliberate that. And people will expect a certain consistency from any brand. And so you don't want to veer way off and confuse them.
Dave, you're going to add something?
You mentioned, you know, river tables before. You know, that's one of those things that I've seen like on Instagram. It's like everybody's posting all these river tables. You know, it's two pieces of slab wood with this epoxy in the middle, and sometimes it's dyed a color. Sometimes it has little stones and rocks. And whoever came up with that concept, it is pretty cool. And I get students who want to do this, and occasionally I visit my tech center, my local high school, and I get high school kids that are doing these. And what I say to them is like, live edge is great, you know, it's a cool material and there's so much potential, but then how do you take the skills that you're learning and take live edge to the next level. So how do you set yourself a little bit apart from that? Like, you can do the river thing, but what can you bring into it that's going to maybe show it off in a different way? Because there's still a lot of potential to take just live edge and go all these other places.
Hand-carved fish going through your It's obvious.
Even just bringing in different kinds of joinery, or there's just all these other different areas.
I started to ask a question earlier, and I'm sorry, we've got people's impression, increasing or decreasing wood, the interest in wood products or the products you all manufacture out in the marketplace.
I've been excited about the younger crowd coming through my showroom. They can't always afford it, but I think they are getting there. There's some late 20s, early 30s kids that are making a lot of money, and they want quality.
Yeah.
They bought the junk and they realized it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't design clothing, because I feel like clothing is changing all the time. But the furniture industry, in my mind, has been pretty active recently. And it's this strong trends that you're talking about, the mid-century modern, but it's just become strong.
Yeah.
It's different than Shaker and Mission. It's different, and it's awesome. I mean, I love it. I'm trying to be creative with my epoxy use, but that's people want it. I joke, anybody with a couple of sawhorses and a sander can make tables. Make these river tables. But there's a guy that moved right into my town, and that's all he makes is tables, right in town. And I'm like, what the heck? Why are you doing this to me?
This is my town.
Yeah, but then I go and I look at him, and it's like, yeah, I'm not worried. Because the money isn't that much different than mine, and the tables are too thick, and the legs aren't correct for it. They'll sell, but you've got to have the creative side to it. You can make a cool table, but to be, it's got to be. I'm going on and on, but I think that in my mind the change has been a lot more rapid lately.
Yeah. Dave, what do you see with in your business? Demand is strong on furniture right now, and people seem to be.
Yeah, demand's definitely strong. The challenge is the designs keep getting thinner and smaller, and how to keep those products together.
Right. Minor issue.
Is what's definitely keeping us up at night.
Yeah.
Because that people want smaller and thinner.
Yeah.
Want wood.
Do you think people are more in tune to style and design today than they were 5 or 10 years ago, or is it, it's about the same?
I think it's got to be more, because of what you were just saying with the Instagram and that's what people know.
Yeah. That's what's driving the knowledge. People are more knowledgeable about what they want or what they think they want.
No, I don't know about knowledgeable, but they can sure look at a picture and tell you they want that table with those metal legs.
Yeah.
Only skinnier.
Graham said a little bit, we're seeing increasing numbers of young families coming through. They have a little bit of disposable income. And they don't necessarily know about that, but they know they want natural, and they know that they can come to us. And it's a very broad concept and how to design something. So I think a trend there is people who really want to be involved in the design process for us, who want to be kind of kept informed about where we're going with the projects and be involved in the creation to fit their space. Because they want an heirloom that will also fit their lifestyle and space.
Right. You all might see it the most with table legs, and that the leg is probably on a table, probably one of the defining pieces that would determine the style and things like that. And so are you seeing quicker change in styles, or?
I don't really know. I hate public.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't put you on the spot. No problem. No, it was interesting. When we were out there, it was obvious, like all the different styles. And what Peggy
Our new
pointed out.
stuff is definitely, mid-century modern.
Yeah.
There's a
Right.
reason- If my father hadn't brought that on, then we would have been dead in the water.
Right.
We're not doing that much sales of the old stuff anymore. And I do see the styles changing and what people want changing. And you talked about, you know, do people want wood? It seems like they want a mix of stuff. We brought on metal. People constantly asking for metal. So trying to find a good balance of the wood and the metal is, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it might feel fast, like to me, but I think it's maybe because we held on to styles a little long. And so I'm not sure the changes I'm seeing, they were started a while back and I just wasn't willing or whatever, you know. And I think also my customers up until recently have always been, you know, baby boomers and that kind of age. And they were always willing to wait. They're willing to, you know, 4 months, 6 months, that's fine. You know, the trend I'm finding is these young people, man, they'll pay the money, but they want it now. Yeah. And it's like, well, I love that table, but I need it to be bigger. Okay, so I got to make it.
Right.
And
Let me start whittling.
I would say 25% of my workforce now is just making stuff like for fast.
Yeah.
Either for my showroom, because now I sell stuff out of the showroom. I never used to do that.
Yeah.
I make weird, cool stuff that people, funny, cool wood and really neat designs. And when I was there, people buying them. And so now I've always got 1 or 2 guys always just doing stuff for the showroom or for a quickie customer that's like, well, I'll wait 4 weeks, but that's it.
Yeah, interesting trend then. So we're hearing people are a little bit more in tune to what they want. They have an idea of the thing, and they want it there. They want it to be personalized, right?
Right.
Interesting opportunity when you start to think about what we do here in Vermont versus what China or Vietnam or wherever else something's being made is being made. It could be an opportunity. Mike, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely seeing a lot of pressure and a lot of change, and it definitely comes from, you know, if people don't want something from China. Part of what you can do as a small company here is be more reactive to what people want. So they're going to push you on it. It's like, if you want to make this for us, this is what we want. And it's, you know, they're not accepting of a stock item nearly as much as they were. So, you know, you can develop your product line, your brand, or whatever. But we had I've got so many examples from the last 3 weeks. But you know, we have a significant commercial account that sent us an Instagram picture a couple weeks ago saying this is the inspiration of, you know, where we want to go with something. And here's another picture of us fooling around with some sticks in the office. And what can you put together for us? And so I got it all out, engineering-wise, practical-wise, price point-wise, and all that. Pitched something, and they said, no, that doesn't look like the inspiration picture. Like, so it's the inspiration picture? No, that's what we want. Oh, okay.
I've never been through this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So,
So I'll come back to sort of design aesthetic. One of the things I wrestle with, is there a true, I wrestle with this for 2 reasons. One, I want to understand, is there a design, in Vermont, or maybe even say a New England design aesthetic? And then 2, should there be? Or is it something we could leverage from a design and trend standpoint? Could we drive, this may be a second question, but can we just drive sort of trends? Is that possible? But I guess, first question would be, do you think there is an aesthetic for today's New England? I'm not talking about, that we used to make Windsor chairs and, colonial furniture. Is there today's aesthetic? James, your thought? And I'm not just talking purely, it doesn't even have to be purely on wood products. I mean, just in general.
There's probably a feeling people have about Vermont that there's probably a sense of maybe purity about what we do. It's a state with a lot of just more natural surroundings. And I think that conjures up certain images and sentiments for consumers. And I think the more what comes out of Vermont is associated with that, there's an identity there. You were saying, I mean, it's been around for decades or longer. And it's the fact that a lot of things are solid, true materials. We're not trying to fake anything. It's all, there's a realness about that, which I think people appreciate today. It's maybe connecting the consumers out there that it's happening here in Vermont. But I'd say that from a design perspective, I think it's a feeling that you get about when you think of products from Vermont. That there's a purity to it, and a realness, authenticity, and that's something that can be played up.
Yeah, do the two have to go hand in hand? Like, for instance, if I look at like things that have been designed for a Wyoming cabin or a Colorado cabin, it's like, oh, I know where that goes, right? And is it? I guess what I'm driving at is also, is there? If I look at a product, am I going to say, oh, that's a Vermont product or a New England product, or do I have to have that other piece of it, which is also, I need to understand the brand behind it, which is, I think, what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, each of the brands that are working in Vermont have their own sort of vision. But I think if you take some of the aesthetic away, there's a sort of an ethos that many of the makers have in Vermont.
I think that's well put, well said, to sort of distill it down to those essential things. I think that is the way to look at it. Because what I've seen is in the past 15 years or so, I've had my shop in Vermont for about 16 years, and I'm from the other side of the Champlain Valley, the New York side originally, but kind of bounced around the country for a while before I came back. And when I first came back, at that time, there weren't too many furniture makers doing like just strictly contemporary work. My work is very contemporary. And at the time, I remember people it was mostly people in their 50s and older that when they met me and then they saw my work, they're kind of like, why are you doing this in Vermont? It's not shaker, it didn't fit a New England aesthetic, it just seemed sort of oddball. And there were a few people doing contemporary at that time, but it was a small handful.
Yeah.
And now there's been a shift, there has been a mix, and I think that's been interesting to see. And I think, like if you look at architecture in Vermont, there's still that sort of vernacular of the exterior architecture that maybe references farmhouses and that kind of thing. But then you go inside, and some of this new architecture is very modern inside. It's open, very open floor plans, very minimal. There's not a lot of moldings and not a lot of ornamentation. So there's that kind of shift that's going on, and so people are kind of open to that now. And so that's been really interesting to see. It's sort of, there's a Vermont modern aesthetic that I think is starting to happen.
Yeah, which can actually be considered modern farmhouse.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is that. So I was at a Lee Edelcourt presentation a couple of years ago because she's a trend guru, and she described this shaker rural revival becoming important for people living in urban environments, which is this yearning to have a renovated barn in New England that's completely open plan on the inside and in a sort of modern pared down kind of way. And that would be the break from our hectic lives. That would be the get out of the city and go to this.
Yeah.
And that's something Vermont can own as a sort of idea that people aspire to. And it's been going on for quite some time, this idea of from a vernacular standpoint, it looks like your farmhouse or barn from the outside, but on the inside, it's a new form of shaker modern.
Right.
I guess that's what drove me on this question is, as I look at it, one of the things I see is I'm like, I don't know if there's a clear, if I didn't know Simon Pearce glassware was made in Vermont, I'm not sure I'd go, oh, that's Vermont. And I say the same thing around wood products. I'm not sure I always look at it and go, oh, of course that was made in Vermont. When I know the brand, the two go together, then it's like, oh, I get it. And I get to the values, right? It's quality, it's purity, things like that. And then I start wondering, the second part that I wonder is like, okay, so how do you get almost on an aesthetic? Is there an opportunity for Vermont woodworkers to get to an aesthetic that we could own? So, and then maybe it's that clean, modern.
It could be
farm.
that, right.
I don't know.
One of the great revolutions of design in the modern time was Danish Modern.
Right.
And the architect, and that furniture was designed by an architect,
Yeah.
was to exploit the extreme limits of wood as an engineering material. And he wanted to display the lines of force which the wood was following.
Yeah.
And many imitators have been unsuccessful in getting that kind of flow. He probably had a better understanding of balancing forces than most people would. Is there some similar movement in contemporary furniture?
I mean, some of what you're talking about, I don't know if you're referencing Alvar Aalto, the Finnish architect and designer, but he was living at a time when a lot of European designers had a reverence for steel and the tubular steel, and they were doing all these things with it that were somewhat mimicking what, Thornay chairs were doing with wood. But in Finland, there was a lack of resources with steel, but there was plenty of wood. And he actually kind of humanized and brought warmth to that kind of idea of these curves and arches and things with wood by using the natural resources they had in Finland, which became sort of a famous thing, synonymous with Finnish design, and kind of saw that happening in Denmark and other parts of Scandinavia also. So it's almost like, if you think of Vermont in that same kind of way, with its natural resources of wood, is there a way to actually, I know there's a lot of using metal legs and bringing the metal into the equation, but could we own the use of wood more?
Yeah.
Well, and I think we haven't really tapped into our interior designers in Vermont, to bring the glassware and the lighting and the wood and the custom craftsmanship together. I mean, you have a lot of architects and designers. We haven't brought them all together. It would be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
You could head that up.
In my free time.
You'll head that up.
It's a great. It's funny because you mentioned, and I hadn't thought about it when we started this, but that modern farmhouse look, and I'm not talking what you see necessarily, splashed across every HGTV show that then translates into products. I think there's a higher level of potentially design that could go into it. Because I get down on the fact that we use maple a lot. What do we have a lot here in Vermont? We use a lot of maple. How many times do I get asked? I'll give you an example. We're talking about walnut and maple. We released 12 products for Williams-Sonoma, 3-4 years ago, and they were the same products designed in maple and walnut. So it was the exact same product, and so there were 6 of them. And we thought, well, they'll sell a lot more of the maple because it's lower price. And it was the exact opposite. They were on trend. It was their call, not ours. They were on trend on walnut, and it went higher. But that clean aesthetic that you see in some of these modern farmhouses, hey, maybe maple is the thing, and maybe we're missing online. Maybe we're the design elements are where we're missing it, where you could drive more maple use, because that's what we have a lot of, and that's what's affordable here. Is readily available and great from a price point. So if you could do it from design, maybe we're missing it because our designs aren't. I don't know.
But that brings up a good thing. Is there a way to reinvent maple?
Right.
In Vermont, like we were talking about the butter metal, like somehow make that material revered again.
Right.
Right.
It could be through new design or material combinations of maple.
Right. But and to your point, Peggy, it could also be that, hey, you got to get not not just the person making the furniture or cutting board or whatever. It's, hey, how do you engage a designer? And in a home that gets featured in Architectural Digest, there's also these features. And, because I think aesthetically, I think that is a trend right now. My sense is that is a look that's there. And it isn't just a converted barn. There's also some kind of modern looking houses that still have that
It could
barn
be
elements to the
colonial, but you
inside.
walk through the door and it's
Right, and it's got a different look.
Yeah.
I don't think we should come up with I don't think we should try to come up with a Vermont design, because but I think we should capitalize on what you were saying, is the quality.
Yeah.
And if we continue to not wreck that brand, make sure that we do a good job. I mean, we talk about the Amish, but I think it's out that there's a lot of Amish stuff that's not well made.
Right.
And so they've hurt themselves that way.
Yeah.
If we can keep the quality, whatever style, your style is totally different than what I do. And so as long as
don't
it's-
compromise.
Yeah, don't compromise. Make sure it's a good, really good quality, and that's the brand. I think that's simple. It can fit everybody's thing.
So the design is less about design aesthetic, and it's more about the other things that go with the aesthetic. The fact that it is crafted properly, quality material.
I think
There's an ethos that sits behind the aesthetics that are diverse.
Right.
There's a great example of this, besides the sort of the residential end, is Hotel Vermont. So if any of you haven't been to Hotel Vermont, it's in Burlington, you should go. Spend a night too, actually, is the best way. But so it's a boutique hotel. It was designed by Truex Collins, an architecture design firm in Burlington. It's very contemporary, but it has the aesthetic that you're talking about. It has this kind of reverence for materials, but interpreted in new and fresh ways. You walk in and it has this Vermont feel. It's very modern and different, but it's really cool what they've done with it. And so they feature Vermont craftspeople in all different kinds of ways, from the reception area, the bar, the restaurant, and then the rooms are all furnished with Vermont-made furnishings, but that were designed by Truex. And so it's this overall kind of aesthetic that they've done, but it's in a very unique way, but done very, very well and to a high level with that kind of reverence for material. And they've won a lot of awards for that too. And they've kind of, I think they're now designing hotels all over the place now.
Actually, speaking of hotels, and I should just throw this out there, hospitality has been a big sort of growth path for many makers. And few in Vermont, like I work with Farm Table and we work with Copeland. Whenever you get interior designers or architects speccing your furniture pieces or accessories for hotel or restaurant development, it just becomes like big orders going out the door. And I've seen the same thing with European makers that I work with also. Past 5 or so years, their growth is not traditional wholesale or direct selling, but it's actually the hospitality piece for many makers has really been taken off. So it's just another side to think about.
Yeah, I've felt that for sure. And I asked one of them, I said, why is this happening? And they said, well, the Airbnbs and all these different things, the hotels need to have a really cool reason to go there.
Right.
A really cool front entrance with really cool Turkish birdcage chairs, or whatever they want, and so yeah, that was interesting to me, because they've just taken this bad thing and trying to come up with it. So it's been good. Because you're right, they order. They usually be
quantity.
Right, it'll be 10 of maybe the same thing or close.
Right.
That's a perfect fit for me. So
Well, that's interesting, because Vermont Farm Tale, I had a discussion with Dustin.
Yeah.
These designs are relatively simple, but they work really well in the hospitality, and they can be customized, and we had touched on that earlier, right? I mean, that notion of customization. And so, really and then how do you, again, push more Vermont product out? Well, that's a pretty nice way to get it, because now it's getting exposed in other areas of the country, and that's, can be a very real positive on how it works back to us into our businesses, whether it's, going to that market or whether it's going to, a wholesale market or whether it's going direct to consumer, right? I mean, all those are opportunities for us, so.
The farm table is creating the experience too, because now they ship out everything in the box, and you actually put the table together, and then the box has drawings on it, and the kids are supposed to, so they color on the box, and it's wood grain pattern and everything, and it, obviously the whole family gets involved, and then they sit at the table, and it's the experience. And
He's done a good job of making something that we all hate, putting stuff together. And we joke about IKEA, oh, you got to put their stuff all together, but he's done a good job of making it simple, I guess.
But he's giving them custom solutions too. So it does come back. I think there's something there on that notion of I want something well made, but I also want it exactly like I want it. It isn't. I don't want it exactly like what Peggy wants. I want what I want.
Right.
And I think that's something potentially we could capitalize on. Because we're here in the United States, we can respond quickly. What was the number we kept hearing yesterday of how many the population density relative to Vermont? We feel like we're 600 and whatever thousand people living in this small state. Yeah, but right down below us is a huge population base. And by the way, a lot of those people like to come up here and they like to have the experience and all the things that you were alluding to earlier. So.
But just to throw something out there about Simon Pearce, our number one state for sales, I think, is Massachusetts.
Yeah, sure. I would guess, if I could track it down to the customer base, I would guess it's probably the same for JCAM.
Right.
Yeah.
That's certainly in our top 5. California is often number 1.
Is it really? What do you attribute that to? So what makes someone in California, and is it northern or southern? It's a big state, right?
Southern.
Southern.
Yeah. Well, up to San Francisco. I guess that's northern. But so our brand is all about sustainability, and so that's our main thing, is reaching out to find the people who are like-minded, who care about where their things come from. Just like traceability, just like James discussed earlier, those are the people that find us. And the ones who at the same time want it a little customized.
Do they, so the big push obviously was FSC. Now, I can only speak to our FSC isn't as important, but they do want to know where your wood's coming from.
Right, yeah.
Do you think it has to be something as formal as FSC, or do they trust because we're in Vermont that we're doing the right thing as long as we make sure we explain it to them?
Yeah, I think that goes a long way. Like, we gave up FSC certification because it was tedious and it didn't work, and a lot of the FSC logs or timber that you get are non-FSC certified. They're counterfeit documents going with them. So FSC, I still support them largely, but they've been contaminated. So for our customers, our company is founded on forest conservation. I mean, that's why I founded the company. And so we talk about that, we educate consumers about that, we explain to them where most wood furniture that isn't made in Vermont comes from. A lot of that wood is coming illegally from just mowing down rainforests. We don't have traceability of our logs. I mean, probably everybody in this room knows how hard that is. Even if you do FSC certification, you're not sure it's correct. So customers really, if you've been around for a while and you talk about that and you're passionate about that, they're willing to believe you. You show what evidence you can.
Right. I think sustainability is still a trend. Agree? Yeah. You were talking to me before the presentation. You were talking about you were looking at your packaging going forward. Is that because you think that one, it's a good thing to do, two, it goes to your brand? What's the rationale behind it?
Well, I mean, I mentioned the word ethos earlier. I mean, we are trying to be as true as we can about what we believe in, and I mean, we do have a turbine running off the Ottawa-Quechee River to power our building in Quechee, and we're looking at ways to layer on solar and other ideas for where we get energy from, because we do use a lot of energy to make glass. But at the same time, we're trying trying to run our business with a lighter footprint and kind of scrutinize how we're using fuel, how we're using packaging materials, making sure that we understand the end life of product and packaging. So we're just doing our due diligence to just be, I don't know, as sustainable as we can with the way we run the business.
So it's good business, but I'm guessing you would also believe it's something that a consumer is looking for, is expecting from a higher end brand.
Right. So we do get customers asking us, hey, this came in this box. What do you expect us to do with the box?
Right.
You know, it's...
I play with the magnets.
There is an answer for the FSC. And FSC, as you mentioned, was designed to help save rainforests. Places where timberland is not owned by private individuals. Almost all timberland in Vermont is owned by private individuals. The great majority of those are engaged in the current use program. The standards of the current use program meet or exceed the requirements of both FSC and SFI.
Right. Thank you.
Good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah, and that's one thing I tell people is that, and I heard this, from the folks at the state. Paul Frederick is a wood utilization guy at the state, is that 100 years ago, Vermont was somewhere around 23 to 25% forested because of all the cutting that happened back then. And now it's between 78 and 80% forested. So it's sustainable. If you're getting wood from Vermont, it's sustainable. And, you don't need the certification at that point. And I've tried to pitch FSC many times over the past 10, 12 years, and honestly, I've only had one job where it had to be FSC. It was a job for Seventh Generation, their headquarters in Burlington.
Middlebury College requires it.
Yeah, right. It's usually the bigger institutions if they're trying to go for LEED. And then one of the problems with the whole LEED certification is that for them to get LEED points, it actually has to be built into the building. So if it's architectural woodwork, if it's trim, they get the LEED credits. But if it's freestanding furniture, they actually don't get any credits at all. And so that was one thing I learned when I did that Seventh Generation job, was because they were going for like LEED Platinum on that job. But
The percentage of lead points for wood and anything is so small.
Very small.
right, yeah. And there's that.
You can skip the wood.
Right. Yeah.
And then the way FSC is being implemented has changed somewhat too. Like originally, there was a paper trail that followed that pack of lumber from the landowner, the sawmill, all the way down the whole certification process. And there was a number that was, spray painted on that pack of lumber that went with the thing. But now, one of my members in the guild, Richard Bissell, who used to do a lot of FSC, he's down in Putney, Vermont.
The Ganya sawmill is certified.
Yeah.
So is Eller.
Yep. But one thing that Richard Bissell told me was he was buying FSC from a supplier, and it was almost like it had become like this little shell game. Like if you wanted 500 board feet of FSC cherry and they didn't have it in stock, well, they would sell you what they had, call it FSC, and then they'd just bring in some FSC from another yard, wherever else in their supply chain to replace that. So there wasn't really the traceability as much for that stick of wood anymore.
Right.
There's a little bit of that going on.
But I think that
Overall.
it's safe to say
Yeah.
the consumer still is expecting.
Yeah.
They're expecting that we're operating in environmentally responsible manners, and that should be associated. Beyond it's a trend, it's good business, but it is a trend in terms of what a consumer is looking for in the marketplace.
And it's a trend that's here to stay. I mean, it's,
Right.
people's awareness is shifting now, and I think especially with the younger generation, you look at the students who are now walking out and doing a school strike for climate and going all around globally, they're paying attention, they're aware.
Right.
And they're going to be making
the things I sort of thought I'd want to touch on sort of as we're getting close to wrapping up here is what are the opportunities that, based on what we think the trends are in the marketplace, what are the opportunities that we may not be capitalizing on enough as an industry to respond to? And I know trends change, so it's kind of like you're answering a question about a point in time, but in general, I've always had that belief, look at it, plastic bags are going away. Straws are now, paper, recyclable, or, there's all these things that go on that I don't think that's, my gut says that is not going away, and we are uniquely positioned here potentially to take that on when it comes to wood products. But I'm curious to hear what other people think and want to hear from you all as well. What are the things that we could be doing better as an industry to help grow, start to expand the wood products industry here in Vermont again?
I think we have all the building blocks. I mean, we have what people are looking for, and it is done in an ethical, it's all put together in an ethical way with sustainable sourcing. So I think the biggest opportunity is this group that you're going to lead, John, which is this, this gathering of all of us, the home decor, the furniture, the custom pieces, the glassware, the lighting, and the interior designers. And then, because we have the capacity, our infrastructure has the capacity, and we can train new people, but really we don't have anybody at the front of the train doing the marketing. And, I make this analogy to agriculture, like what got agriculture going, what got organic, that was, I make the case that's the chefs, that they made all the cheese look beautiful and taste good. And so I kind of think that the interior designers are the chefs of our niche.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great when you get the
You
group
would probably
together.
say the architects as well. Because let's not forget, wood products doesn't just happen inside the home. Wood products happen on the outside. I was having a great conversation with Joel about some new wood process he's looking for exterior. And I'm like, hey, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a there's a lot of fronts there. I think part of it is educating customers about what options are too. I think a lot of times within the furniture guild, since we're all doing a lot of custom kind of stuff, a lot of times we'll get customers or interior designers who will say, I want this wood, but they may not even really know that much about that wood. Like, for example, say mahogany, and it's, that's a color a lot of times. I get interior designers that say, can you do that in espresso? Well, espresso it's in a catalog, and it's a color, it's a stain, and it's a stain color that's often called that espresso. So and I don't personally do stains, so I'll just say, well, how about walnut, or how about this, or whatever. Try to get some wood that will fit that. But if it's a request for something like mahogany, for example, maybe I could show them something else. Maybe we can try to steer them towards something else that might be more local, maybe more sustainable, maybe Vermont, or just something regional. So I think there's that.
Yeah. James, thoughts?
I mean, you're mentioning the interior designers and the architects. They, in a way, can be brand ambassadors for these products made in Vermont. I wonder, are there any other marketing things happening, even by the state, to help kind of broadcast what's happening with this product?
Yeah. I think one of the challenges we're wrestling with the Vermont Woodworks Council is, hey, we built a great new website. We have a limited budget, but how do we start to get the message about the cool things that are going on, whether it's, wood that's coming off, up at Shelburne Farms that you guys might be selling, the parts you can get here, the fine furniture. And I think there is an element of it, because the thing I take back is that I look at it and say, there may not be a clear Vermont aesthetic and to your point, we should all do what we do, but if we can show that the consistency is that high quality, that we care about the environment, that we care about our communities, all these things behind that, and then market that, and then let each person have the aesthetic. I think the overall piece is the piece that starts to help the industry as a whole, regardless of what segment you're in. But it's
Is there a Made in Vermont Instagram account? I mean, I don't even know if there is, but
I'm not sure about Made in Vermont, but we have an Instagram around the wood products industry. But it's just we got to get some horsepower behind it. But yes.
or there could be some just social media things that could be done that maybe.
Well, and we touched on this earlier too. Your point about a Made in Vermont is listen, I don't think at the end of the day we probably don't want to sit and just think like, oh, we're woodworkers. I mean, you were talking about your collaboration with Hubbard and Forge, right? And I think there's those incredible opportunities that one can then extend the brand, the Vermont brand,
Right.
which is really probably what we
those
need.
kind of collaborations with other like-minded companies in the state of Vermont. They might be people you never thought you could work with.
Right.
Join forces and make some new things.
Right.
Like we did a collaboration with Hurwitz and Forge, and it's leading to more products.
Right.
Does anyone license the Vermont brand? It looks like a pear tree.
Oh,
I'm not sure what it shows that tree, the shape of the tree.
Oh, you're talking about the Vermont, our tree, the tree that's with,
the Vermont quality wood product.
Vermont quality wood. I would say no, not effectively right now, but that's something we're working towards right now with the Vermont Woodworks Council is to do it, is to try to figure out how you do that.
Yeah, we just formed a new logo, Bruce, so we're not going to muddy it with the old one.
Yeah.
So it gets confusing.
Well, I was always puzzled why they chose a pear tree.
I'll tell you, I wish.
Every species of tree has a
unique shape, right.
Yeah.
profile that was chosen.
Right.
It's very similar to a pear tree.
Right.
I was just going to say, it would really help me if the sawmills and the people selling wood in Vermont would get onto this story trend. Because I go there personally, and I ask questions and learn the story, but that's the only way I can get it. And there's some people there's a great guy in a place in Pennsylvania that's got it figured out. And I can get slabs from him. I can see this exactly. It's not hard, but it's not in the DNA of most sawmills, to get the Instagram thing going. And I mean, I know Tommy's trying to, but the story is all of it. And my customers just want to hear a story. They want to hear it. And if I can say anecdotally, this walnut, came from Vermont. It was up there in Bristol. Don't get a lot of walnut, but it's not real wide. But I want this table. We're gonna make it.
Yeah, that may help too. I mean, we're debating that right now. I'm the first one to raise my hand and say, I wish I did more with Vermont wood, and we don't. Primarily kind of price. What we're trying to do is go a little more high end, and with a segment of our business where we could use we would use more Vermont wood, and then the story behind it would be incredibly powerful, because I think that does resonate. I think people do want authenticity. I think they do want trend. They do want to know about the environment. I think these are beyond the design trends of appearance. Those are underlying trends that seem like they're not going anywhere. I think there's a real opportunity for us as an industry to continue to tell that story.
I think that another trend that I'm seeing, studying to get this kitchen showroom built, is that painted furniture, cabinetry is obviously still big. But anyway, it's also moving to light woods.
Yeah.
And I think the furniture's staying dark walnut because that's warm, adds some warmth. But the cabinets, red birch or maple, but done right, and it has to be. We have to use our skills, which we're good at. We're artists. We're good. We're skillful. Most people I come in contact that work with their hands in Vermont are really good.
Right.
And that's something we got.
Yeah.
And but I got to get my hands on that wood. I got to say no. I want red birch, but I don't want it red. I want red in the middle and white on the outside edges, because I'm going to this, or I want the whole door style to look like it. What is that? And it's like, I think it's your secondary red birch. And so I'm going to go up and pick through your pack. Take all the junk that you don't want. Actually, I want all that.
Yeah, exactly.
They were psyched when I left.
Yeah. Oh, hallelujah.
I left it with a bunch of nice red birch.
That's right. I think where there's potential for, if there's any one sort of signature wood that's uniquely Vermont right now, I would say it's tap hole maple.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's an untapped kind of potential. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential for that. And you know, it's like, I think back like 25, 30 years ago, I went to a sawmill and that was like the junk that was nobody wanted, you know, and they were like practically giving it away. But, you know, like Brent, he makes stuff with tap hole maple and sells, right? It's pretty well, right? Yeah.
So the price, and that's rocker, tap hole rocker, the wood costs basically the same, 50% higher on the price.
Interesting.
And it takes an artist. You can't just do it.
Right.
Like I had one of my kids just putting stuff together. He wasn't paying attention. Had a tap hole right in the dead middle. I mean, it looked like somebody had a shotgun lined up. It was not. You don't want it in the dead middle. It has to. You got to keep it hard. You got to look at it. You know. And so but that's good because that means that a human has to hit it. Not a machine, but a human has to build it. And that's good for Vermont.
It's interesting because I agree some of those other wood types are opportunities, and what was his name up in outside of Montpelier was trying to do the artificial spalting.
Harvard.
Yeah, I thought those are some, I mean, how do you take some technology and then leverage it? Because not everybody wants maple, but if you can do something to maple, there could be a really great opportunity, and it gives it that natural look, so it sort of feels that Vermont feel. So anyhow, we're up against it on time. Anyone have any other questions or comments, thoughts?
I want to, I guess, ask is there? Well, it feels like there's a tension between the Vermont ethos, quality, and like price accessibility to consumers. And because I mean, we've talked a lot about kind of high-end products, and there is a market for those. But I'm thinking about those millennials that don't haven't made it yet. Are not walking into Brent's store yet. But one of you made a comment I really liked about opportunities to buy something smaller, bring that home. And I just wonder about that, that tension and where does that fit, as it relates, because Vermont could make a play, we're really going to stay in that kind of high-end market niche, and that's where we are, and that's our spot. Or are there other opportunities, particularly as we think about this pipeline of buyers who are not yet into their full sort of earning years, to begin to introduce them through still very high quality, not disposable products, not straws and things like that, but small, like the
you said you're in the middle rate level.
Right. We're in the middle.
Start. That's good, great quality.
Yeah, I would call Linden Furniture. We retail for them middle. I mean, outside of Vermont in a furniture store, they would be the high end.
Yeah.
Right? They'd be but inside Vermont, even inside Vermont, some of the furniture stores are the high end. But when you're talking to this crowd, they're the middle to maybe lower end. But we do sell them, and the people who buy Vernon or Linden tables are so thrilled with them. It's heirloom quality to them. They've never seen anything this high quality. Yeah. So we try to get people in with a smaller, like a lamp table or a small end table, a coffee table.
That's the making almost like try-me pieces that are accessible, accessible price points, but it's still getting that quality and the craftsmanship into the hands of the consumer.
Yeah.
We do this a little bit at Simon Pearce with our apprentice line of glass, which are made by apprentice staff for training, and they all come out kind of irregular, which is kind of like the beauty of them and the story behind them. And they're $35 a glass as opposed to $75 or $80 a glass, and we find younger consumers buying these. And it's a way, for people want to try something, or they might actually like the fact that they're all regular and made by the apprentice staff.
It can also happen, I think, Joe, to the industry as a whole, if we're a small state, we're working together, we all believe that, if we can raise the tide, we all go up, right? I mean, products that Mike makes or I make are relatively affordable, right? So if you can get them in on a product like that, and we're saying, geez, did you get a chance to go see, Dave's furniture or, the Linden furniture? And then, the handoff is like, oh, and now, hey, did you go see Clear Lake? And, you've got to see Dave's work. And it's that transition. Why does Mercedes make it 280 or whatever it is? It's because you're trying to get them in to the brand, right, very early on, and then you want to hold on to them, and then if they progress, great. If they don't, hopefully they fall in love with that level. And I think that mentality probably would serve our industry well. Get them into a Vermont product, and then let them go from there. Because I don't think we should focus just on the high end.
Yeah, and marketing that whole range of opportunities, because I agree with the point on marketing, but make it clear that it's not just, dining room sets with, huge four-figure price tags. Right, exactly. There are smaller tables and big stuff that you can access, get that without.
I keep coming back to the fact that I think we have it, in a sense, but it's got to be the good. It's good quality.
Yeah, right.
It might be a midpoint, might be lower. I don't know, but it's like that's fine.
Yeah.
For what it is, that's a great product.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a lot better than Kia and all that junk. So as long as wherever you are in price point, just do a good job.
Yeah, because it becomes a different set of challenges from a marketing standpoint. It's like, to do the entry-level, affordable range that's high quality, it's mass produced. You're still up against, okay, where else are people going to be buying? And there's a lot of people, maybe first home buyers who don't have a lot to spend. You buy the house, you got to furnish it, and they're buying on Amazon, and they're buying other stuff. They're buying the really cheap low-end stuff. So how do you set yourself apart in that field and capture that audience?
Well, I appreciate it. It was, we wanted to talk on trend, but it's also a very helpful thing for us at the Vermont Woodworks Council as we have our next dialogue on where things go from here and how do we work together. So I think we kind of hit on a couple topics. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and have a nice lunch.